Hello, everyone. I'm back. I was in the session right before this one, and it's my pleasure to be here again now to introduce Professor Samson Tan. I don't know how you pronounce your name exactly, Samson. It was good enough.
Yes, wonderful pronunciation, Ulysses. Thank you for having me. I'm Samson. Yeah, I think some of you have watched my keynote earlier, and I'm happy to be here. I'm the head for Center for Innovation in Learning, quite a mouthful. So in my institution, they call our center in learning, so for short. Yeah,
Yeah, and I've known Samson for maybe 5, 6 years or even more, right?
yeah, that's right.
And Samson has a really nice work in Singapore, where the National Institute of Education is the main reference in terms of teachers development in the
Mm,
country. And Singapore is considered one of the best educational systems in the world and is well recognized. And the National Institute of Education is the main responsible for for that good image, at least, or also knowledge that is produced in Singapore. It's a small country, quite different from Brazil, and but it's inside what is East Asia, where Samson knows a lot about. So he might bring to our session some similarities about what he experiences in East Asia. So thank you, Samson, for being here with us. And we have about half an hour and a lot of questions, a lot of good comments about your video, the pre-recorded video, uh, talking a lot about technology. For some people, it's too far away from our public schools, but it's good for people to know where we should aim, where we should think about getting if we want to transform education. And so that's why one of the reasons we invited Samson for being here. Okay, also to show where is technology moving, and we have to think ahead. Also, not only think, well, we don't have good conditions in Brazil, so we cannot do anything. It's not true. So that's
absolutely.
an important thing to talk about.
Yeah.
You want to say something before we start the questions, Samson?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize that point that you just mentioned. It's not true that we need to be the most cutting edge in terms of research in technology in order to use technology very well. So I totally agree with that point that you just made, Ulysses. And I think throughout this session, I also want to clarify some of these points. I think they are very exciting things that it's possible for everyone to harness, to leverage all these emerging technologies to for our students, for our learners. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's stop talking around, fooling around. Let's go to the work, right, Samson?
Sure. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, we are here for that. So, Claudia Ladeira, that's the first question.
Yeah.
What do
Right.
you, what do you consider an innovative mindset? Does training our students for the job market combine with the joy of learning?
That's a very good question, and it's also a loaded question. I thought a long about this. You know, the term innovative mindset is something that even my colleagues in my center always ask ourselves. Is it what is it that we do is innovative? How do we define innovation? And in our university, we have this innovation grants, right? So for faculty who has got a good idea, they can come forward, present their ideas, write a proposal, and I'm on this board of assessing. And then, of course, defining whether some ideas are more innovative than others, some ideas are not innovative than others. So those are some of the big questions that we ask ourselves. We try to define what innovation is. I think at the end of the day, it goes all the way back to this particular research I just want to talk about. It's called is done by Rogers in the 1980s. So he talked about the diffusions of innovation, right? So basically tied to a lot of research that is related to diffusions of technology uses this particular model. They talk about, that people have a certain mindset about innovations. There's about 3% in any population. That means 3% of Singapore, which is maybe much smaller compared to about 3% in Brazil's context, which is a much bigger country. So we always have these people in any organization, any school. So these are the people, I have some of these colleagues in our university. These are the people, the trademark of them is that they will not be waiting for my colleagues to show them what innovations we have. They are the ones that, oh, Samson, how come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing that? Have you tried this? I tried this. This is why it works. Okay, so these are the kind of colleagues in which I particularly like to spend a lot of time talking to. They have a certain mindset in which we call it a divine dissatisfaction. Divine, that means it's good, right? A divine dissatisfaction with data core. So whatever, even things are working very well, they're always thinking ahead about, the best is yet to be. There's something better out there. So if you ask me, there are many ways of defining innovative mindset, but I would say that people with that kind of divine dissatisfaction, always looking for a better solution to something that which perhaps could be functioning very well at this point of time. So if I have not said anything in my long way of explaining this, I hope I somehow have answered some of this particular first part of the question. The second part of the question talks about, does training our students for the job market combine with the joy of learning? So I'm trying to understand over here is that whether is it compatible? Training them for the job market, will it translate into joy of learning? This is how I understand it. I would say that yes and no. Training for the job market can take a very interesting manner, and a manner in which will build core fundamental skills in our students, thinking skills, for example. But it could also be training just to do the job. And some of the jobs that we see in the market today, in the industry today, they are disappearing very quickly. So one of those things that we grapple a lot about is how much to teach our students the core principles of a certain subject matters so that they are able to build new knowledge on top of it. How much of it that we need to tie that to the current needs of the market so that it become employable. So these are some of the questions in which my colleagues in the universities also looking at, particularly in the engineering side, because these are the guys who are technologists, and there's a need of constantly trying to balance the curriculum in that way. I would say that the joy of learning comes from whether we can trigger that motivation in students. One of the ways in which it's very effective in literature as well in practice that I've seen is that helping students to be able to find authentic examples in learning. That is one of the best ways in which we trigger the kind of interest, motivation, and once they get hooked on that, you don't need to force them. They would spend all the time that they want to in order to solve that problem. So one of those most effective ways in which I have used in my curriculum design would be to use problem-based learning. Yeah, and a good problem which is authentic, that reflects what it is in real life, tend to get the kind of attention. You hook onto the students and they'll dive very hard and work very hard on that. So that's my experience, and that's my response to the first questions. Yeah, Ulysses.
Yeah, and we are in the first part of the session. We are actually discussing about soft skills also. I think people got your message about technology and things. They want to push you also to talk about the soft skills, like the joy of learning and things like that. And so that's where we come to with the second question. Was made by Ana Stella.
Yeah.
And she would say, wouldn't these strategies involving artificial intelligence be canceling social relationships and disfavoring the development of important social-emotional competencies for the full integral formation of citizens.
Wow, this is again even heavier loaded questions over here. I would say that the first response to that, I would say, whether is it artificial intelligence or any other kind of technologies, they are actually amoral, meaning that they are not neither good or they are neither bad. So if we look at, I think at the end of the day, it depends on how us human beings make use of those technologies. It can be used for the betterment, enhancing of learning or enhancing our life. In the wrong hands, technology can be used for evil or misuse and result in what we see over here, cancelling of social relationship. I suppose that means that it nullifies, it prevents us from forming bonds with others, whether it's family or friends. I think I want to go back to the example on my last slide over there about the schoolgirl in China who got so fed up about doing homework that seemingly useless in helping her to learn, and got a machine to replace herself in doing the homework. So you can see that on one hand, as teachers, we will probably say, you shouldn't be getting a machine to do that. That's really very bad. Yeah, because you are not doing the teacher's homework. On the other hand, it's also about us teachers asking ourselves the question, writing passages again and again a few hundred times. How is that beneficial for the students? The only thing I can think of is perhaps the handwriting skills. Hopefully it can become better, but really learning the meaning behind the poems, the words, the literature, I think that's very lacking. Yeah, so I think time could have been better spent if, let's say, there are interactions with the other children, other students. And in many ways, technology provide the kind of functions. Even right now, this is evening over here at 9 o'clock, but over in Brazil, I think by and large it's about 10 o'clock bright early. But the technology has somehow brought us together, and you make use of this to have this interaction right now. And the wonderful thing about technology is also that transcends space, transcends time, and it can be recorded. And if you have missed any points, later you can go back and take a look at that again. So I think instead of focusing on what technology can nullify a lot of good face-to-face interaction, I think the important thing for us to consider for all teachers using technology would be how to use it well to enhance what we want to do, the human intelligence part of things. Yeah, so that's my response.
Yeah, that's great. So now I think it's clear, it's connected in some way with my keynote session before that I talked about technology. I call the good and the bad technology. That's the and how we should not be naive also about technologies like VR and augmented reality. It can be interactive or can be just more of the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also. So just with a nice cascade, and people think, well, I'm cutting edge, but it's doing more of the same, like the 11th century, 12th century, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So now there's some questions from the Brazilian audience, more related to the post-pandemic, like put it this way. So one first question is from Diego Lins. He is saying how to bring students who dropped out during the pandemic, back to studies in the post-pandemic world.
Wow, yeah, this is a very compared to the earlier
it's question. It's a huge problem in Brazil, in the low socioeconomic areas.
Yeah. This is even more difficult, I would say, to do. I don't think this is something that is just depending on the teachers or the schools to do it, because I think that is perhaps one dimensional. I think you need to galvanize the whole society, the whole country to focus on helping students who has fallen behind or fallen through the crack, who are not able to keep up with learning during this period of time. I would say that don't wait until it's later. I think we should try to do something right now. And probably I'm sure that there are teachers who are thinking of creative ways to reach their students. I just want to share some of those strategies, if you like, that I've learned interacting in a sessions with countries, other educators from countries in Southeast Asia. So there are two cases in which I would talk about. One is from Malaysia. So last year during the pandemic, Malaysia, even today, they are still struggling with a large number of cases. They have to close schools more often than what we did in Singapore. And then very similar to perhaps in Brazil's context, there are students who live very far away in the villages. They have rainforests and the jungles, and so in all those very far flung places, they don't have internet connection. So everybody was trying to the whole all the schools were moving their curriculum online, but the students cannot access that. And so what they did was that some students have to take their mobile phone, walk very far to the higher place, climb up a tree. I'm not joking, because this is exactly what was related to me. The students actually climb up the tree until he can get a signal for his phone and able to access the study. I think this is something that the students did, and perhaps so. What the teacher actually advised the students, they're trying to find a place where they get better signal, and then be able to access their work. So some of the students will just do that, walk a few. I don't know how far they walk. I think it was quite some time they had to do that. So they find ways and means in which to reach the students, use short messages that are able to pass those content, those work for their students to access. That's one case. I find out from another educator in Philippines. And Philippines has a similar challenges as well. And some of them even worse, as in that the students live high in the mountain. So not only that they don't have internet access, some of them are too, they are not, the village don't even have signal at all. So what the teachers did was that they didn't use high technology. What they did was that they come together, put together content in CD-ROMs. And then they send people to deliver it to the villages and distribute that to the students. So to try to somehow enable some form of continuity. So this is what I mean. It's like, well, depends a lot on our creativity, our willingness to galvanize everybody to try to work to help our children. Because if we were to wait for pandemic to be over, I think that would be too late for our students. So we will have to do as much as possible to help as much as possible in order to reduce the kind of learning gaps for some of our students who could not get access to the internet.
Yeah, it's in some way we need, as teachers and managers, whatever, we need the ability to solve problems.
Yeah,
This is important, because this is a real situation that we cannot say when it's going to be over. It's moving forward, but this connects Samson with another point in the same direction, which is the role of the families.
Yes,
Because I understand that families has an important role in the cases you just brought to us. And Simone Correia made a question that brings the family to the discussion. Okay, for many people, including families, only face-to-face teaching is what counts in the educational process. How can we engage families to understand this new perspective of education? In some way, it connects with what we were talking about in these difficulties.
Yeah, I think this is a very big challenge, very real, not only just in Brazil. I think these are excellent questions. It happens also in Singapore. When we have online learning for students, when we need to close the school, the parents are the one complaining. Not the children. Well, of course, children complain because no playtime. They think, oh, in front of the computer they can play, and then the teacher can't see. Yeah, so this is one of those problems.
Playing while taking
Yes, exactly. They could have two computers, one of them playing games, the other one pretending to be paying attention to teacher, teaching in class. And then the parent becomes like chaperone. I have to watch over the students, making sure that the children are paying attention to the learning. And sometimes you have, classes that goes on. We have a few children in the household. How do you split your attention with so many children in the house? And so at the end of the day, the parents become, the feedback from parents, from my friends as well, I said, become so tired. They tell me, oh, please, no more online learning. It's not effective at all. Yeah, they are like looking forward to how quickly put the children back to school so that they can have real face-to-face learning, which is what they call the real learning. I think the problem over here, the fundamental part of the problem over here is with the learning design. In our haste, in our rush to put learning online, what we just did was that it's not the good design. We didn't think about it very clearly. We will just rush, whatever I say in class, I say it using a platform, whether it's Zoom, Teams, or anything, as long as I say it to the children. But the problem over here is that the platform is 2-dimensional. That's what you're looking at me right now. It's not 3-dimensional. I can't be in a physical classroom, interact with my peers, my friends. It becomes very boring. It becomes not so engaging. It becomes you lose attention very quickly. To be honest, is that in the first 3 months when we have to do a lot of remote teaching, a lot of remote working, I felt so tired at the end of the day as teacher. And the students tell me they feel so tired after listening a few hours of lessons from this subject to the other subject. And it's like, you can't do that, because that is transplanting face-to-face pedagogies into online pedagogy. It doesn't work that way. So one of those things that we know right from the onstart is that we have to help our faculty, our teaching faculty, be able to have better capability in adapting to online learning, effective online learning. Similarly for teachers in our schools as well. So they actually turn to us for help. When they need help in getting resources, getting design, development for their online lessons, they come to us. So we do provide a lot of advice for them. But then again, it's like, things is happening very quickly every day. They have to turn around the lesson very quickly every day. So they learn good principles, but there's not enough time to put them into practice. Yeah, so our Ministry of Education realized that as well. So they are planning for it, even when there was a period of time last year that we were quite good in managing the pandemic. There was breathing space for the teachers. So they were doing what we call blended learning. Part of the lessons, they do face-to-face. Part of the lesson, they deliberately, perhaps one day in a week, students will do it online. So it's a practice for the teachers to design better online lessons. And so, and what I'm seeing over here is that our official at the Ministry of Education is looking at this now. It's like, what post-pandemic, blended learning is here to stay. Blended learning is not just a knee-jerk reaction of moving things online suddenly. They have to deliberate plan, look at it holistically, so that you get the best of the online learning, you get the best of the face-to-face interaction. Yeah.
In some way, you reached the next question, but I think maybe you want to complement. That was brought to by Eduardo da Costa, and he asked about what can we really expect for daily school life as soon as we get back to the face-to-face school. I think.
Yep. Yeah, you are absolutely right. Yeah, I think I jump forward to this answering this question. Blended learning is the answer that I'm going to recommend. Because literature tells us is that why universities, why schools adopted blended learning, because there are certain affordances of online learning which lend itself readily for students to learn, particularly our students who are so used to social media. It's like they are so apt in using social media, they communicate with that. But we are not saying that we have to teach everything or make them learn everything through their gadgets. That may not work. I think a lot of literature also cautioned against moving everything online, particularly for K-12. The younger the students, the more difficult it is. There are other things in which you need to look after the students' development. That is well captured in research. But I think there are certain affordances in online learning that helps. For example, in the chat group, so students can be sharing their thoughts quite easily, and because they are able to use their gadget very quickly, their thoughts flow very fast. I think compared to mine, I look at my students, many of them are able to respond very quickly. And also sometimes when you speak like this, it's that the brain function, neuroscientists will tell us this, the way that we respond to questions speaking and the way that we write about our answers, it takes a different process. And that process got to do with reflection. Sometimes we reflect a little bit more when we type it out in words or write it out in words. I think I'm venturing into a territory in which I'm not that good. I think perhaps Ulysses, being a psychologist background, and can better explain this part about different part of the brains when it comes to responding and whether it's verbal or written.
Yeah, I want to jump in this question and answer, but not exactly in the perspective you brought me. But actually, because I understand that the cell phone is a main answer for that. Okay, because of course we have a big issue that kids are at school not only for learning, but also because the parents need to work.
Yes.
People sometimes forget that. And so one of the reasons, mainly most countries where you have the schools for the whole day from 7, 8 in the morning up to 3, 4 in the afternoon, is that because parents need to work. And so you cannot just don't bring the kids home. So when you talk about blended or hybrid learning also, how we connect this to the reality in the classroom, I think we should think seriously, not as we see today that forbid students to bring cell phone, but the opposite. We have to bring cell phone.
Oh yes.
Both students have, where they can make these connections with other realities and everything.
That's right. Totally agree with you, Ulysses. Is that preventing them from accessing their technologies, I think it increasingly become more and more difficult because so much digital transformation has taken place during this period of time, the pandemic. Before pandemic, we keep hearing Industrial 4.0, how things are moving so quickly. The problem during this pandemic period is that it didn't slow down. In fact, it accelerated much faster. And by the time, if we are not preparing ourselves for that, by the time when we say that this whole pandemic blow over, it will be too late if we pick up the pieces after that. I should say that we should be moving faster, but learning, doing enough research to tell ourselves what works, what doesn't work, and avoid the evils, and then pick up the good part of things and start implementing them. Scaling up, make it sustainable.
Yeah. Well, we are getting close to our ending time, but I want to make now 2 questions together, okay, because they are related. From Bianca Huskowski, she asks, what difficulties you have faced in implementing this program, especially in relation to the resistance of teachers? What are the possible paths for grading adherence to this type of practice based on artificial intelligence education? And then Marcus Mello, in some way, because now we are talking about teachers. What are good strategies to engage and convince teachers and parents in this journey of implementing cutting-edge technologies, especially in the use of artificial intelligence in education?
Right. Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was designing my slides for the presentation. If you realize that my slide has got Portuguese translation subtitles under it, and there's I was a bit worried whether I'm taking a risk of using the translator embedded in PowerPoint to do so. I decided I wanted to do that because I need to walk the talk. I'm going to talk to educators who are, some of us who can be very adventurous in using technology to enhance teaching and learning. Some of us may be just, wow, we're not too sure about that yet. We want to take a look. We don't want to put our children at risk doing that. But I decided I need to do so to demonstrate that AI is already very much part of our life. And we are already using a lot of it without realizing it. I use the example of online shopping. I think this period of time I've been doing a lot of online shopping. And the online shopping kind of algorithm behind that, marketing has changed so much. I taught marketing, right? Marketing has changed so much right now. Is that a lot of marketers that they are employing nowadays, they are not those that are looking at principles and all that or writing, but they are looking for people with quantitative skills, learning scientists, learning analysts with a lot of quantitative skills to analyze the kind of consumer behaviors when we're online. So when we click at certain things, when we look at certain things, a lot of this data is being generated and analyzed. And then this AI actually follow us. And so one of those things in which I find that the easiest, not the easiest, but to help us realize, whether parents or teachers, is that we are living in an age whereby AI is really almost in every part of our life without us realizing it, right? And once we get to realize that, then we ask ourselves the question: if AI is already so much part of our life, whether it's shopping, whether you take out your Google map to navigate from point to point, it's all out there, and preventing ourselves from using that in education, we were actually preventing our children from getting to know how to use that in life. So it's not just in school, but our students will one day graduate and be able to use that in life. So instead of my persuasion over here, instead of resisting, we acknowledge that we are living in an age that is like that. It's almost telling me is that let's not have internet. Let's go back. Let's not go to internet at all. But I think by and large, we will probably find that it's almost impossible, especially if you live in a big city. Perhaps in some other places. Brazil is so much bigger than us. There are many different kind of lifestyle, which is fantastic. I love country lifestyle. Being a city state and we can't fly for the last 2 years, it's a suffering for me. I look forward to going to Brazil one day soon. Yeah. But my point, coming back to my point over there, is that helping the parents to see that even in their workplace, they are already using AI, even without knowing it. Yeah, because AI just basically becomes a function in a particular program or application when it becomes so widespread, just like in PowerPoint itself. Yeah.
Well, we got a few minutes left, but there is one question that maybe you can talk something about. Anderson Monteiro is asking about how about people with disabilities. How do you think they can take advantage of this kind of technology and projects and everything?
Yeah, well, I love this particular question. I have one case example over here that I want to share with teachers over here. My colleague, he teach in education psychology. No, sorry, the department education psychology, but his focus is on early childhood education, particularly for inclusive education. That means children with special needs, disability. And the best, I wouldn't say the best part, but for himself, he himself is visually impaired. So he's really walking the talk. And he used a lot of assistive technology to help him carry out his teaching duties, his everyday life. So speech to text and text to speech applications become so important to him. And he was able to use it. So
like the translator.
Yeah,
I use
just like
Microsoft. I use the Google Translator to subtitles and
yes, exactly.
help people, deaf people, for example, to
yes, exactly.
different cultures.
Yeah, and like PowerPoint itself already have a translator that can convert this the text to speech. So for people who are blind, would be able to follow the conference. So that's another thing that I could have enhanced. But because my slides are really talking about it, and so the subtitles will be useful for people who have hearing impaired, so they can actually read the subtitles without missing if they can't read my lips. So I think that's all those are good examples of good use of technology to include
technologies.
That's right. Yeah. So there are other examples as well in which technology in such that there are robotics part to help people who are physically disabled to move better, design of wheelchairs, and be able to do so. There are so many more other examples depending on what kind of disability, I suppose, for the students. The more the way to look at it is that to not just not focus on the technology, but focus on the problem itself. What problem I'm really trying to solve, and we find the right technology, the right fit of technology to solve the problem.
Yeah. So in other words, I would say that we should not resist, and teachers should not resist to the use of technology, but try to see what is a good use of technology and how it can support the learning of the students, more students with disabilities, people with difficulties in learning. They are not impaired in traditional way, but technology can help on that. And that's the importance of looking ahead and see what technology is moving, to where it's moving, and how we can bring that to the school settings.
That's right. Absolutely, because we are living in a world whereby things are moving by technology itself already, and so there's no point resisting it, because just the students are experiencing it in life, but they can't do that in school. That becomes a disconnect.
We don't live without this anymore. So, and the students, why shouldn't the students have access and make the good use of that in the classroom and everywhere?
That's right.
Well, and this good technology is telling me that we are right on time.
Right.
To close this fantastic session, I thank you very much, Samson, for your time and your knowledge and availability to be here with us. I know it's 10 p.m. right now, 22 hours at night in Singapore right now. It's 11 hours difference. And thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the invitation. I'm so happy to be here to share with everyone about what we do over here, and I hope you will find it useful. And I'll say that the context could be quite different in Brazil. I hope that you will find that there are some relevant things that you can adapt in your own context.
Yes, and thank you everyone for being here, and don't forget the next, in a few minutes, 20 minutes, we start the next session. It's a round table about visible thinking with people that had experiences with the Harvard education school in the Project Zero there. So we should be there to see some nice experience about learning and teaching. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah, bye-bye. Have a good day ahead.